ideology is legitimised through a particular set of discourses. Are we all good so far? Good. I am going really slow on this, but I'm enjoying it. I like it. Let's take 5 minutes and then we'll come back and we'll finish up. That hangover is kicking in big fucking time. Damn!
Will. You said there were 2 others that would show up in there.
Yes.
Did you watch the game?
I watched it very closely. I was absolutely mortified.
Was there any point where you were feeling hopeful?
No, I was. Do you know what? I had some hope.
Where?
I had some hope. And Gareth Bale was on the bench. That was the first half of the game.
Yeah. And absolutely nothing happened. Come on, that free kick.
My man just busted it down.
Come on, that free kick was fucking sexy,
That
man.
was not even funny, like.
Oh,
and then the
beautiful.
second goal, like, not
30
even a minute
seconds
after.
later.
Like, was so sick.
It almost missed showing the goal because they were too busy showing the replay of the last.
Yeah. Nah, mate, I'm actually, I'm sick. I'm sick of my stomach.
Yeah, unlucky. I was gassed, mate, but I felt so wrong because I was in a pub in Wales and so many people there were Welsh. And I was screaming excited about England scoring goals, and then there was just all these Welsh people that just, people were leaving because they were so pissed off at how shit their team were doing.
And you were just there having a good time.
Yeah, but I thought I was going to get like headbutted or something. I'm just one English
If Wales
person.
scored, you definitely would have gotten a head.
Probably. Nah, I was chatting to some Welsh locals in the smoking. Yeah, well, they were just saying, there's a lot of English people that come here and rub it into our faces, but I'm not. I was a little bit.
Yeah. Oh.
But not as much as they would expect it to. So, like, and then this mate came out that was fucking. I was like, I'm gonna stop now. I was like, yeah, good game. You played really well.
I would not have done that. I would just walk out, mate. Do you know what I mean? I'm not risking it.
I did eventually.
Especially if I start speaking, they're gonna be like, "Oh, you're English."
Oh yeah.
You're English. I'm trying to get weekend tickets.
Weekend tickets.
Wow, what a sick bastard.
Weekend tickets for what?
For the weekend.
Oh, the artist, the weekend. I thought about weekend tickets, something that's happening on the weekend.
No, I'm paying to have a weekend.
Yeah. Where's he playing?
London next year, July.
Damn, I bet they're going to
Mate, I'm literally fighting to get it.
Wait, did they literally come out at 2? Did they literally came out at 12? You've been in the queue for 2
Oh,
months.
right, no. Alright, they updated it for 2, so now I've got to wait. There's 7,000 on They were queuing.
In the queue. Wait, but what? Is it in like one of the big football stadiums?
I think it is.
Then they've got a capacity of what, like 60, 50?
Yeah, but I don't want the seat in the back. Do you know what I mean? I want to be right there, looking at him in the eye, wooing him.
Wooing him.
Yeah. Seriously.
Wait, so is there different prices of tickets? So like, you pay this much, you sit there, you pay that much, you sit there.
Yeah. It's about like it's about 100 and something pounds. Don't say that.
Yeah, did you money?
Okay. Look, it's going quickly. It was 7,000. Fighting for my life.
I remember when was it, in like September, when the tickets for Arctic Monkeys came out.
Yeah.
I don't listen to them, never have, but Chloe loves them, and she has no one else to go to Arctic Monkeys with, and she has always said that, so she has always said, I really want to Arctic Monkeys, and I see her doing a tour, I'm like, okay, tickets, and I was like, I'm used to going to like raves or like underground UK rap things,
So you're a rapper?
Yeah, and then the tickets to get to them are like £20 maximum, and I'm like, so I'm used to spending £20 on tickets for kids, and then this comes along and it's like £89 to go to this gig. to a band that I don't even listen to. Originally,
You're gonna have to storm them out. Like, you're gonna have to make your money's worth and listen to the
I
entire album.
know.
Mate, there's nothing more painful than standing in a concert and not knowing any lyrics.
I know.
You're gonna have to learn now. You're gonna have to learn.
No, I'm just gonna be there to see Chloe enjoy herself. That's gonna be my
Good
enjoyment.
lads.
And then, because obviously I know like their basic songs, like I know like one or two words from the chorus, so I'll just be there for the chorus like that and then sit down for the rest of it. But I mean, 89 £89. But yeah, the week, 100 and something, but it's London though, isn't it? So I guess it's more expensive.
No, London will rinse you. It will rinse you. Like, you're buying a ticket to even go, like, just for the venue, but you're gonna have to pay for a hotel, you have to take food,
Yeah, I
travel,
think about it,
this, that, and the other. That concert is not £89. That concert is at least £300.
Oh yeah, at a minimum. The drinks are gonna be fucking...
You're planning on paying for drinks? No.
It's got sleeper in, mate.
Like, it's either I pay for a ticket here or I try and get a job there.
Yeah, basically. Oh, I'd be sick though, imagine if you're working the venue.
Oh no, I do that normally.
Is it? In London?
No, normally in Swansea, like Singleton.
I was going to say, imagine getting pretty long if you're working in London and in Swansea. Oh, that's kind of sick, you know.
Yeah, I did see
But yeah.
You got to pay 55 quid for that.
Or is it like £10 an hour for 5 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was, look at that. Only 181 people in front of me.
That's from London.
You're next.
Alright, come on.
That's good. I went like dot. I went 2 o'clock on the dot. I only waited 2 minutes.
There you go.
They better be some tickets available. I don't know what my friend got though. It depends on what he got there, I need to get because I don't want to be.
You don't need to specifically get a thing booked to be right next to him.
Yeah, you do. But I'm not picking up. I'm paying for like nearby.
So you can
Just enough to like record him.
Yeah,
That's like VIP, like you get to speak to him, talk to him, this, that, and the other. Yeah.
That's also been recorded. Okay, so power and ideology, how do they link together? You've seen this slide in a different lecture when I was talking about Donald Horkheimer. I just ruthlessly self-plagiarised myself. On that note, that brings me to something interesting. Can you, by the university, be penalised for copying your own work? Interesting. You have to ask the lecturer in charge of the module. I don't believe that something called self-plagiarism exists, because that might be the stupidest fucking phrase I've ever heard. Plagiarism means to take the work of another and pass it off as your own. If it's your work, you're not taking it from someone else. It's kind of self-explanatory, right? But you must ask the lecturer in charge of the module. Some people will say, oh, but it's poor academic practice. And then you say, but I'm paying your wages, bitch. Mark my book. Get into this kind of discourse. Reinforce your ideas. Me, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's the most absurd thing out here. Okay. Now, as I explained in, week 5? Donald and Horkheimer argued that the mass media were responsible for the transmission of the ideologies of a ruling class. Those in power are able to fuse their ideologies in order to legitimise them to the public because they control the means of production in the media. So they control what is produced to make sure that what is produced legitimises their particular ideological stance. According to Antonio Gramsci, who was writing largely in the 1920s, this is a concept called hegemony. This is when the ideas of a dominant class in society become common sense itself. And there are no contestations of it. There is no alternative to the view that's held. So if you want to impress me, drop the word hegemony into an essay, and I'll be like, damn, kid knows hegemony. Yeah. Already you're up in the high 60s. Discourse and ideology are related, it's important, and again, this is something which I do see frequently. They're treated as if they're one and the same. They are not, they are distinct. Now, I've given you a task for assignment 3 about defining a term. If you were to talk about discourse and ideology, I would expect you to define them separately from one another and be very clear on that, okay? That will earn you marks, as far as I'm concerned, because you are separating those things out and showing that you have a knowledge of the difference of the two things. Ideology is linked much more to power relations. An ideological position or stance is linked to a relationship of power. Discourse is much more of a diffuse thing than that. And by diffuse, I mean it's not specifically linked to one particular aspect of power or ideology. And it courses across all things. Which is why I keep saying discursive things, they're not just verbal statements. Discourse is wearing a bucket hat to a football match. That is a discursive action. It can be done in many different ways. It can be visual, it can be performative. Of course, it can be verbal. Yeah, undoubtedly so. But it can be performed in a number of ways. The relationship between discourse and ideology really is the field of Michel Foucault, who is this rather bold-looking gentleman right here. I suppose up until the last 10 years, this guy was kind of the most important thinker in critical theory and cultural studies. He's less so now, but his influence lives on. Foucault wrote a series of really important books in the 1970s and early 1980s, before he unfortunately died very young in 1984. He's an extremely important thinker who you're going to encounter in a variety of ways throughout your degree. Now, for Foucault, power and knowledge are intimately linked. Foucault wanted to draw out what exactly is power all about. For him, power and how we know about things is so important. What do we know and how do we know it? And how do we express knowledge? Those are all functions of power. Both of those things, power and control, are used in society controlled by institutions. Power always controls, therefore, and defines knowledge. What Foucault wanted us to think about as the way that all these things fit together is, people in power want to maintain a power relationship. The key way that they do that is not through exertion of explicit power in particular ways, or what you might call hard power, that would be something like physical, like an invasion. But instead, power is maintained by keeping a tight control about what people know in a particular society. A great example of this is how society operates in North Korea. You all know what I mean? North Korea, the country, and here, North Korea. Does anyone know who the leader of North Korea is?
Kim Jong-un.
Very good. Who said that? How did Mr. Kim become the leader of that country?
His father.
And how did his father become the leader of that country?
His father.
Yeah. Actually, that's not as far as we can go, because there have only been 3 generations, right? But, so, why? Why is that family in charge? It's a dynasty, yeah. But are they good at running the country? Spoiler alert, they're not. It's really bad. It's one of the worst run countries in the world. They maintain their power, largely, Kim dynasty, and their associated allies within the state, by having a very, very tight control on knowledge. They maintain very, very important, stringent controls on what is taught, what is distributed through the media in terms of knowledge. You can't access the internet in North Korea. Or, well, you can. It's not quite true. You can access a version of it, but it's very tightly controlled, so you can't actually access anything outside of the borders of North Korea. So you can't get any information about North Korea from another country. This is why when people do leave North Korea, and it very rarely happens, and most of them who do so are defectors to other states, usually most often South Korea, it's a near neighbour. It's like they find, maybe not the truth, but a different version of how their country is seen, and it can be very, very overwhelming. This often manifests itself in strange ways. So North Korea qualified for the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, and their players weren't allowed to watch television or listen to the radio. They had North Korean state officials with them at all times to make sure that they could not access any information that might tell them a version of their country which was different to the one that they had been given. Knowledge was controlled, because the fear was, even with these 30 or so individuals that went to South Africa, they could spread knowledge like a virus through this machine that's been created and get people thinking, oh my God, we're being screwed. So they were very closely monitored about everything they did as soon as they left the state. And an interesting byproduct of that is that North Korea lost 6-0 to Brazil in a group match in that World Cup, and North Korean state media did not report the result and only showed 3 minutes of highlights of the entire game. The game was not broadcast live. They recut the entire match into a 3-minute section and neglected to tell anyone what the score was. So as far as people in North Korea are concerned, they did not lose 6-0 to Brazil in the 2010 World Cup. I wish, BBC Wales operated on this principle after Tuesday night. I could quite happily live with that. Right? Power, in this case, always, now this is a really extreme example. This is probably the most extreme example I can think of where power operates to control knowledge. Thankfully, in pretty much every other society on the planet, it does not function in that extreme way. Although there are degrees to which power controls knowledge. And Foucault's point here is that those in power are always actually aiming to do this. Now, in liberalised societies, that's a much more difficult task. But that doesn't stop people in power from trying to impose these conditions. And one of the ways they do that is by controlling the media. Therefore, controlling what information we're given and how knowledge is actually created. Remember right the way back to week 1 when I was arguing that the media creates our reality? Well, yeah, and it does that by creating the conditions by which we know things. So our knowledge base, to a large extent, is defined by the media that we consume. So, for Foucault then, what we have now is power, control of knowledge. That control of knowledge therefore creates the sort of ideological functions of society, which are then expressed through discourses. So there's 4 steps going through. Let's do a little bit of thinking, people. So, I have an example. I'm going to show something. This ain't going to work, is it? Because nothing works in this poxy institution. What I want to do is try and use the speakers. I wonder.
As he does not operate within any definable.
How can I turn that up? You would think there would be a switch that just says volume. But no. Nothing is so simple in this life. Damn it. And then everyone looks at me like, God, look at Leighton. He's a bit simple, really. He don't know what he's doing. What an absolute imbecile. Why have they moved everything here? I hate everyone and everything. You hear me, institution? I hate you. Wow. Tell you what I'm going to have to do for a second. Oh, I'm not going to bother. This is already too much effort. I'm just going to give this a try and see if it actually works.
As he does not operate within any definable branch of government, Iron Man presents a potential threat to the security of both the nation and to her interests. I did, however, go on to summarize that the benefits of Iron Man far outweigh the liabilities, and that it would be in our interest to fold Mr. Starr into the existing chain of command.
I'm not a joiner, but I'll consider Secretary of Defense. Yes, thanks. I'm in the hours of it.
I'd like to go on and show, if I may, the imagery that's connected to your
I
report.
believe it is somewhat premature to reveal these images to the
With all
general public at this time.
Colonel, I understand, and if you could just narrate those for us, very, very.
Intelligence suggests that the devices seen in these photos are in fact attempts at making manned copies of Mr. Stark's suit. This has been corroborated by our allies and local intelligence on the ground, indicating that these suits are quite possibly at this moment operational.
Hold on a second, buddy. Oh, boy, I'm good. Come near the screens. I need a little transparency. Now let's see what's really going on.
What does he do?
If you'll direct your attention to said screens, I believe that's North Korea.
Turn that off, take it off.
Iran. No grave, immediate threat here. Is that Justin Hammer? How did Hammer get in? Justin, you're on TV. What's up? Wow. Yeah, I'd say most countries 5-10 years away. Hammer Industries 20.
I'd like to point out that that test pilot
I
survived.
think we're done at the point that he's making. I don't think there's any reason.
The point is, you're welcome. I guess. Because I'm your nuclear deterrent. It's working. We're safe. America is secure. You want my property? You can't have it. But I did you a big favor. I have successfully privatized world peace.
Okay. Apologies for the sound, but the last bit is really, really important. Here is Robert Downey Jr., well-known smackhead. I have successfully privatized world peace. What is the discourse being legitimized?
And how do you want to forget how the audience that America can protect the world and how the audience?
Okay. Point one,
Yes.
but just point one. America protects the world. A discourse expressed continually, not just through Marvel Cinematic Universe, but any number of action films you care to look at, which have been produced by Hollywood. America is the world's policeman. Why? When you are looking at discourses, don't just identify, ask yourself that question. Why? Why say this? Why does Hollywood need to say this over and over again? What's the point? We get it. I'm not stupid. I understand. I've heard it a lot of times before. Why?
Is it the ideology that America is just superior than other countries?
In one sense, yes. America is, or the American film industry is reinforcing the idea that America is superior. But then we can go further than this. Why keep on saying this over and over again?
Because this film just like America or the Testament, to tell the world like to tell what like the to let the America terrorism.
Yeah, to an extent, but we need to go further.
Manufacturing consent for military industrial complex.
What does that mean? I like the answer, but you've got to unpack that.
Military industrial complex, companies like Lockheed Martin, they get government subsidies to make weapons, and then they sell those weapons to the governments and other foreign powers.
Okay, so the legitimization here works as an economic function. You have to, again, a classical Marxist view, right? You know, that those who are on the means of production in society reinforce their messages. We are getting closer. But there is, okay, what I'm going to argue here, I'm going to make the argument a little bit different, right? This is needed. It's not just that this is continually done for no reason, because we do get it. I've seen this shit hundreds and thousands of times. Why do they need to keep on saying it?
Does it reinforce America's right to interfere with international conflicts?
We are getting closer again. Yes, it reinforces an American right to get involved in international conflicts and to exercise sovereign control over other nations. We're nearly there now.
They need people to get, they need people to have trust in them, people don't trust America.
True, yes. So this is a soft power way of doing that, definitely. Okay, I'm going to go back a second to the Ukraine example. On my example of the Ukraine, we had two competing discourses, yes? Do you think there's a competing discourse to American hegemony?
No.
They need to show.
Or there is?
They need to
There
show
is in a
people
big
as
way.
Isn't it? They're trying to show people as others. So you've got the rich white man who's the rich white man.
Sure.
And then you've got all the people who are others. So they've got something that.
And what's wrong with the others?
They weren't as smart or as
Well,
efficient
but in this
or-
context, what are they trying to do?
They're trying to do the same as what.
To do what?
America's doing. To,
What's the end purpose of doing
I
that?
guess. Well, what they're saying is that it's to beat America.
Yes. American hegemony isn't uncontested. There are people out there who don't agree with it. You know, that could be through actions, i.e., have you ever heard of a group called Al-Qaeda? They've done something big about that 10, 20 years ago. And this goes on very, very often around the world where American interests are attacked regularly. They could be political, where there are political opponents to the United States. And it can be ideological. A lot of people produce and continue to produce texts which challenge American hegemony. It is the role of Hollywood and its discourses, and I can't think of a better one in the last 20 years than the whole of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to legitimize those discourses over and over again in the face of contemporary challenges to American hegemony and power. That is what MCU is for. That is why it is there. Go watch Wakanda Forever or something. Did anyone ever stand back and think, why are all the black characters dressed like that? No. It's a mimicry of depictions of people in Africa which were created in the 17th, 18th and 19th centuries to argue that they might be superheroes but they're still primitive. It's fucked in the head. As soon as I saw clips of that movie I was like, you cannot give me enough money to watch this shit, I'm afraid. It is terrible. So, what other discourses do we have? Everyone always wants to talk about horror movies in these. So, let's talk about horror movies. Discourses in horror movies. Who's a horror movie fan? Yeah? Okay. Who's the first one that dies in a horror movie? Come on. The black person is the first one to die. Who's the last one to die? Ooh, I don't think so. The white girl, usually. And what has the white girl always got going for her?
She's a virgin.
Oh, she is always a virgin, that bitch, yeah. Why is the virgin white girl the one that gets saved?
She's pure.
Oh, she is as pure as the driven snow, that bitch, yeah. A discursive statement which says what?
Patriarchal view.
Definitely part of it. Undoubtedly so. You've got. I wouldn't go so far as perhaps to use the phrase white supremacy or white superiority, but I think it's very much a part of it. Promiscuity is a killer. What ideological function is this serving? Ideologically, what is being said here? What is the role of women? in society, in this view. If being promiscuous as a woman gets you killed, what do you need to do? Don't be a slag. Why not? Well, first of all, we're diving into the analogy a little bit too much here, but slags are no good for what? Society in general, yeah, and they're going to get killed. Slagging about, you're going to die. Basically, society wants women to be demure, chaste, pure. Right, now, if I take the word society out of that previous statement and put in another word, what is a good word that I can put in? Begins with an N.
Men.
Thank you. Society in this concept is men, because horror movies relay a series of ideological messages which are absolutely typical of a white patriarchal society. Of course, that can be subverted. A lot of people like Jordan Peele's movies. What Peele does really cleverly, I think, is take those tropes and understand them very well and then subvert them in very specific ways. And Get Out in particular does that in really not even a subtle way, but it's entertaining how he actually goes about doing it. Romantic comedies. We've been through this. Somebody tell me what the ideological message is in the discourses of those films.
Don't be promiscuous. Look for that one person.
Yeah, I mean, that's there, definitely, yeah.
Like, wait for that one person and be happy that you can marry.
Yes, because
The marriage, like, the wedding is like the one thing that the woman can have control over.
the wedding is the one. What is the ultimate message here? That being married makes women what?
Happy.
Happy. The only way for women to be happy is to be married. Don't forget it, ladies. It's true. At least they're trying to make you feel that it's true. I haven't seen this film, but I don't need to. Top Gun Maverick. By show of hands who's seen this piece of shit movie. I haven't seen it, but I know it's a piece of shit. What is the ideological message of this Tom Cruise Wonderfest? I know it's not as ideologically interesting as the first film, which was a deeply discursive discussion of homosexuality in the armed forces. Because, like, you had Cruise over here, you know, and he's got this girlfriend and what have you, and, you know, he's the straight way. And then over here you had, like, Iceman and all these dudes, and they were, like, ripped and bleach blonde hair and whipping each other in the fucking showers with wet towels and playing, like, the gayest game of volleyball ever recorded for films. And, like, they were the gay way, right? And then you had this whole conflict. These guys are over here saying, come on, Cruise, come on. You've got to come the gay way, you've got to come this way, you've got to be my wingman. Wingman being a very, very specific term for what he was going to do to Tom Cruise, right? And then Cruise is over here and Kelly McGillis is like, yeah, no, fuck those guys, you've got to stay here, you've got to take the straight way. And then they have the big fight out at the end, and then Cruise is like, over here, you know, because he's with his guys, and like, yeah, he's gone the gay way at the end, and they have just a little big sword fight at the end or something, I don't know what happened. But yeah, it was a whole thing, right? So that was a really interesting film. A load of shit. Was there an ideological message in this? I haven't seen it. Somebody tell me.
Military is great.
NATO is great.
Military is great.
The military is great. Why would anyone say that? Money! You reinforce military hegemony, reinforce the economic basis of American society in itself. America, we've got to spend a huge amount of our GDP every year on the military. Why? Military's amazing. But why is it amazing? Well, it's amazing because we spend so much money on it. But why do we spend so much money on it? Because it's amazing. Round and round, this is not really sensible, is it? So, yeah, problematic. I've discussed how racist Star Wars is in the past, and again, if anyone watches Harry Potter, grow up. Video games are intensely discursive as a form, and games get us to accept arguments in very, very different ways. Now, the person who discovered, or who actually proposed this idea was a very, very good theorist called Ian Bogost, who argued that the authorship of rules of behaviour in games and the construction of dynamic models are based on ideologies themselves. And we should always ask, who writes the game, why, what commercial and institutional interests are involved, and what are the politics of such things. Often you will get examples of media we said, like, this isn't ideological. All media is ideological. All media is made by somebody who has a particular set of ideas, and therefore we need to pay attention to those ideas. I'm going to get a rush on. You can go through this stuff in your own time. Now, ideologies in practice. Okay, all these newspaper front pages are taken from the same date. This is a cross-section of newspapers published on the 7th of the 7th, 2022. So let's have a look at you. Bittersweet exes. Kiss goodbye and thanks for everything, Boris. Leave means leave. Basically, a pun on words that says, fuck off. Worst PM ever, the Daily Record in Scotland. Not mincing with words in any way, shape or form. Clinging on for one last party. Stick that knife in, the Daily Mirror. I like that jagged edge you just shoved into his liver. Thank you, Boris. You gave Britain back its freedom. Get off your knees, Daily Express, please. This is cringe of the highest order. Johnson quits, defiant to the end. Financial Times taking an overview of the whole thing here. The Guardian, it's almost over. Because the Guardian's smart, you know. Times, Johnson throws in towel. Oh, he should throw himself in. And the Daily Mail, what the hell have they done? Getting rid of this godlike genius. Each of these texts are trying to construct a different story. A story which tells the tale of, depending on your unit, the agony, the tragedy, the hilarity, or the simple bloodlust of Boris Johnson losing his job as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. All reporting the same event in uniquely different ways. To construct or maintain in these cases, very important distinction, but it is a true one. Each of these newspapers has a discourse about Johnson already. This is a maintenance about that discourse. The Daily Mail, Johnson, an absolute hero. So you maintain that discursive statement. For the Daily Record, Johnson is one of the biggest twats who's ever lived. And they're not afraid to put it on the front page. So, this is how discourse acts in our everyday circumstances. We engage with, this is the point at which I guess I want you to think about not the media. Because sometimes we get into a block of thinking, right, the media says a thing. It doesn't. Media is plural. And different aspects of the media will say different things on the same topic. Now, for example, bang, bang, and bang, the three most pro-Johnson headlines there represent numbers 1 and 2 in terms of circulation. But if you chuck in the Express as well, they have more sales than the rest combined, times 2. So the most popular newspapers are saying, if you like, the same story here. There are 3 different owners, actually. There's a coordination here to maintain a particular discourse across those 3 newspapers. The more marginal titles are telling you a different story altogether. That illustrates some of the function of power and knowledge going on here. You transmit them to the most number of people a consistent message. This is how discourse functions. I'll skip over that. As Connor indicated, we can conceptualize this within the idea of manufacturing consent. Chomsky and Herman in 1988 proposed that the media operates to legitimize discourses by creating consent in society. We consent for this particular set of rules. The extent of corporate control over communications leaves little possibility of any critique of capitalism in any way. And for Chomsky, this involves the use of institutional filters. Basically, every institution out there filters what comes to us and therefore, as Foucault argued, controls knowledge. Those filters act to control the conditions by which we actually know things in the first instance. This contributes to the idea of cultural imperialism. As in, media is globally overwhelmingly dominated by the United States. You get a globalization of culture because those institutional filters which are operated by media organizations in the United States diffuse across the world to create a particular set of conditions of knowledge. The richest spread their message furthest and most efficiently, with least barriers to the spread of that knowledge. Cultural imperialism is not a good thing. In social media, which is global, ideological discourse is everywhere. Social media is owned by 3 different companies who control what can appear on their platforms. This creates particular forms of knowledge on these platforms, which creates ideological statements, which creates discourse. This is exemplified through the sort of different codes and conventions that we have to post things. If you think of Instagram, for example, there is a way to take an image on Instagram. There is a way you have to portray yourself on Instagram, which encodes a certain set of ideological functions about what you should prioritize in life. Looking good, materialism, etc. And of course, on social media, algorithms work in a discursive fashion. Interesting. Here. Does anyone operate under the idea that when you open Instagram, it is a chronological timeline of things you follow? Now you open it up and here it is. Why not?
Normally they put like ads and stuff at the top.
Well, yeah, but okay, well let's consider that and take the ads out. Is it then roughly that?
No.
Why not?
Instagram changed the algorithm to make it so you see more meme videos or whatever, so you don't actually see like people you follow anymore.
I mean, you've taken it a little too far where you don't see people you're following. You do. But you actually also at the same time don't as well. There are people missing from your timelines. Low status people that you might follow. People who simply will never appear. I never see posts from other people that I know. I know they make posts. I'm there when they do them. They're not coming up. Instagram controls algorithmically what you are exposed to. Why? Because it wants you to be exposed to a certain set of messages in order to reinforce a particular set of ideological messages. You are not shown everything. Emma, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say the same thing that you said, like, I mostly see stuff from people I don't know, like from like art accounts or other things that are more popular, that have more followers than
Yeah, people who don't have followers just don't appear, right? This is fairly common across most things. And the codes are working discursively in order to reinforce a particular set of ideologies. So you aren't shown everything. You might ask, what the fuck is the point of any of this, you boring prick? Please ask it more politely if you're going to do it to my face. But I do have a point. Basically what I've explained to you today is something called hermeneutics. All discourse analysis is an operation in what we call, in philosophy, hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is the study of theory and interpretation. Okay? Anything that operates hermeneutically, we are interpreting the message encoded in something. My argument today is you need to know about discourse because your entire degree is a degree in hermeneutics. Everything that we are teaching you is really, we should call media studies hermeneutics. So that's what we're asking you to do. We are asking you to get a set of skills in order for you to understand. We are teaching you only a particular set of skills, so we are asking you to understand in a particular way. That, my friends, is how power produces knowledge, produces ideologies, which produces discourses. So that we are involved in a distinct power relationship with our students to get you to see the world in only the way we want you to see it. You may think, that's not very nice, is it? Tough shit. That's how things work. I've just explained it to you for the last 2 hours. That's how things operate, right? Where basically, when we're studying media, what we're taking the position of is the facts matter, but there are no such thing as pure facts. Everything is interpretational. All information is filtered. As I said in week 1, we live in a mediated world. Everything we experience is mediated in some way. We are never in direct contact with reality. Reality is created for us by that which mediates for us. Therefore, there are no such things as absolute truths. There are only interpretations. Therefore, your entire degree is the study of interpretation. That is hermeneutics. And you might think, why do I need to know this? Well, I think it's polite that you do know what you're actually being taught over the next 3 years, even if it's at a really high level and it doesn't affect you in any way. Basically, your degree is essentially a degree in postmodernism, and it's a postmodern course. And because of that, you can actually reflect and say your entire education has been postmodern in itself. Even mathematics is taught in a postmodern way now, where you're asked to contextualize everything. You're not given big sheets of numbers anymore. You said, like, Johnny needs to go from A to B through angle X of fucking thing of cosine Y or some shit. It's a long time since I've done maths, right? I think that's roughly true. Everything is now contextualized in that way. So you're being trained to understand and deconstruct the world. In the pre-modern times, the way we understood the world was God put it there. No other explanation needed, you know? Why did all those people die? God. Why is that chicken got 3 eggs? God. You know? Why my leg fallen off? God, isn't it? You know, it was a simpler time. And one that I wish to go back to, quite frankly, because it would solve a lot of problems. But then we move into the modern world. Onwards and upwards with progress. Science and knowledge will teach us everything. So yeah, I'm on board for that bitch. Yeah, give me a bit of science. I'm down with it. And in the postmodern world, like, nah, it's bullshit that. Science can only teach you so much. Science can tell you why a rose smells, but it can't tell you what a rose smells like. That's some deep fucking shit. You take that home for Christmas and your folks be like, damn. We live in a postmodern world, so we create, understand, and improve arguments. We deconstruct and decipher text. We create and encode meanings. That is what we do. That is how we function. That is what your degree is all about. Ostensibly, we are always engaged in this. We look at the context of how something is done. We look at it textualized. We look about how those texts change the context of everything. This is called the hermeneutic circle, which we can never get out of. We are always engaged in this. This is why your degree is hermeneutics. This is why it is very important, even if you're not going to do an essay on discourse, that you understand it, because all of what you do will be about discourse. Always reflect on the meaning of what you consume. These always inform the meaning of what you produce. Even if you're thinking, I'm not going to be in theory media, the theory of what you know here will inform how you produce things as a producer. This cycle is what we understand. It tells us why media producers create the meanings they create and what the effect of this is. It is fundamental, and therefore it is your degree. Do we have any questions? Don't go anywhere. We're not done. I did say I would go through this. I have 5 minutes. So strap yourselves in, this is going to be quick. So, assignment 4, Thursday the 12th of January 2023 at 2 p.m. Take a note. Take a note at this advice. For this assignment, you will be required to submit a 500-word essay plan, 2,000-word essay, fully referenced with the bibliography. Bibliography does not count towards the word count. Essay, 2,000 words, begins at the first word of the essay, not the title, and ends at the last full stop of the essay, and not the bibliography. Very important to note. Every assignment that you have should be like that. Bibliographies are not part of word counts. In addition, you will need to submit a short 100-word statement of how you've acted upon your feedback from previous assignments in this module and the completion of this work. Now, the way it usually works out is, okay, your stuff isn't coming back, isn't coming in until the 8th for assignment 3. That means, in theory, it should be available on the 29th. However, it doesn't work that way because we're actually on holiday for a lot of that period. So it will be available in early January. So, I only want you to reflect on assignment 2. Assignment 3 will come out, I think, unfairly too close to this to include it. So, please, only assignment 2. Submit this after the bibliography, and this will not count towards the word count. Okay? So 100 words, but actually if you want to copy and paste the feedback that you had and comment on it like that, I'm not word counting it, basically. The plan should be a clear outline of what you intend to do for the essay. You can do it as a text document or as a mind map or something like that, I don't care. Some of the best ones I've had are people who've taken photos of the mind map that they've made and put it into a Word document and submitted it that way. Yeah, well, that works for me, that's cool. Your essay must clearly answer the question from the outset. You'd be surprised. Have a clear argument. You may not be so surprised. Have support for that argument from well-chosen examples in academic literature, and must provide a balanced account, i.e. you must consider some criticisms. So, essay answers will be failed if they merely contain general discussions. Essay answers will be expected to contain accurate, highly detailed information about the facts of the subject, detailed reference to discussions of and arguments drawn from the critical literature, and a critical conclusion based on these facts. This is a first-year essay. I do not expect you to go into the library and stay there for 3 weeks. Okay? The classic question I always get is, Leighton, how many references should I have? The answer to that question is, I don't know. How good is your essay? I have no idea. I would be looking at a typical range, academic references, 5 to 8. Okay? That is usually an indication of somebody who's actually done an appropriate amount of work. What I mean for a good essay there, something like 70 or above. That is usually a good indicator that somebody has done the appropriate amount of work for that.
Is the 5 to 8, like, is it 5 to 8 pieces of, like, work? So, like, you know,
so it could be like, you know, the Hodgkinson textbook could be your core thing. But you have also found some other sources to back up some of the stuff which you have taken out of that. Yeah.
So some of your, like, you could do 4 references, but it could still be to the same thing as long as it's 4.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to have to pick this up next time. But, whoa, sit. If that bitch who comes before us can go on till 5 too, I can go on. Do you guys have a sound now? Okay. Give me time to go through the first question. And then, I promise, I will go through the rest next week. I've done the previous. Now, because it actually relates to what I've been talking about today. And as I say, this is likely to be a question which at least 30% of you are going to do, and I understand why. Explain how discourses work to legitimise the ideologies of ruling elites in society with reference to one particular form of media discourse, i.e. e.g. film discourse. Everyone always does film. Okay, I may as well take anything out. Everyone always does film. Newspapers will be interested. What am I asking you to do? Same as really I'm asking you to do in everything, and think about the assignments that you have been set. I'm asking you, first of all, to do what? Am I asking you to do the introduction first? When do you do the introduction? At the end, thank you very much. Anyone who writes an introduction first is an idiot. You never write the introduction first. I'm asking you to start by defining discourse. So what you are doing now for assignment 3, I am asking you to do that for a different thing. In that kind of word length. with that kind of detail, with that kind of reference to relevant academic text. That's why I asked you to do it. So you get used to doing it, because you have to do that for essays. Then, what am I asking you to do? I've asked you to do another assignment. What am I asking you to do with relevance to that assignment, assignment 2? What should be your next section?
Feedback.
What did I ask you to do for assignment 2?
Summarization.
Summarization. So you're going to summarize an academic argument about what discourse is, based on what I've already asked you to do. You can employ those skills again, right? Then you're going, so that will cover your, what is discourse, what is the idea of being legitimizing dominant elites in society. It's done. Then you're going to pick out some relevant examples. So we're talking probably 800 words already done. I want to see examples, plural. So I'm going to pick out a couple of different movies, right, to show how they legitimize particular discourses. And then you're going to draw your conclusions. And then you're going to write me a nice introduction based on having written the essay to tell me what the essay is going to say. Boom! Do that. You're going to be fine. It's going to be easy. It's going to be so easy that, you're going to be like, yeah, I'm down for this. I'm going to get like first in everything. And then you'll do something with William Marin and you think, I want to try. But that's for next year. Okay. I'll see you guys next week. I will pick this up next week.
Why do you need to go to this?
Oh, because basically I need to pick up forms for
Oh, right, okay. Well, good luck with that.
It's so big.
I didn't think of this. Okay. Cheers. Right, how far along are you?
I'm just honestly,
Okay.
I've obviously done the glossary entry, but that